My parents secretly practiced with a small account and added a little brother who looked just like me. The little brother always ranked at the bottom of the class. He didn't dare to call mom and dad. He directly called me to the school instead. He was my class teacher. The little brother obediently tugged at my clothes. Yet I felt the woman's gaze was cold. I put on a brave face and greeted her. Luckily, it was also unlucky. I didn't know we broke up 3 years ago, and you already had such a big son. When I was in college, my parents gave me a birthday gift. A freshly baked little brother. Seeing my mom shyly hide in my dad's embrace, I admiringly gave my dad a thumbs up. You're so awesome. Most importantly, the little brother looked too much like me. Comparing old photos, he was a spitting image, simply a replica. My mom proudly held the little brother. Our family's excellent genes. Not creating two would be a waste. Look at this little face. He'll steal so many girls' hearts in the future. I didn't want to disappoint my mom. But as my mom's main account, I've only had one relationship at this age. Not sure if this small account can become a heartbreaker. Anyway, after graduating and working for 3 years, my little brother successfully entered 2nd grade. My little brother was simply a challenge from heaven. He often climbed trees, caught birds' eggs from a young age. After starting school, he ranked last every time, and didn't dare tell mom and dad. Every time, the only thing to do was let me, the senior brother, go to the office to get scolded. Apparently this semester my brother got a new class teacher, with the midterm results out soon. I was summoned again for tea. In the office, my brother obediently tugged my clothes, greeting the woman in front. Miss Zhang, my dad is here. For the first time she was my class teacher. Just as I was about to greet Miss Zhang, the words got stuck in my throat. Feeling the cold gaze from the woman, I awkwardly changed what I was going to say. Still luckily and unluckily, I didn't know we broke up 3 years ago. And you already had such a big son. My brother looked up, staring at me in shock. At that moment, we brothers both cried out in our hearts. We're doomed. 2.5 hours later, my mom came. She scoffed at my brother before going into the office. That night I also received a mixed doubles punishment. I got a friend request from my ex-girlfriend Zhang Zhu, whom I broke up with 3 years ago. Since I started college, I noticed this untouchable beauty. So I chased her for a year. Till now I'm still on the school's simp leaderboard. But in the end the simping paid off. I actually got this untouchable beauty. And we even dated passionately for 3 years. It's just that everyone thought, when I was about to propose to Zhang Zhu after graduating, I broke up with her instead and dumped her, leading to Zhang Zhu going abroad to study sadly. From that moment, I became a campus legend. You left your water bottle in the office, she said. Zhang Zhu sent me a photo, and suddenly I remembered. Earlier today, when my mom was chasing my brother, he hid behind me. I was busy mediating and left my water bottle in her office. Could you please pass it to my brother tomorrow? Let him bring it back to me. She replied instantly. Why don't you come get it yourself? After all, I was the one who gave it to you back then. No, this bottle was from Zhang Zhu. I've treasured it for a long time. But now, the scumbag image I had after our breakup is completely shattered. The next day, I came to the school. Zhang Zhu was sitting in the office, wearing a simple white shirt, by the window. Her slender fingers held a pen, seemingly grading assignments. The first time I met Zhang Zhu, she was sitting quietly like that, yet attracting everyone's attention. Hey bro, what are you doing standing there? Just as I was engrossed in watching her, a commotion came from behind. Zhang Zhu heard the noise and looked up. My brother was surrounded by a few girls, curiously looking at me. Is teacher Zhang calling you to scold me again? It seems, my brother was well aware of his mischievous nature. Zhang Zhu had just come out, but before I could say anything, the few little girls had already surrounded her. Teacher Zhang, Chen Hao is being a bad boy. I stared wide-eyed at my 7-year-old brother. He really was a little heartbreaker. Chen Hao jumped up and down anxiously. No, I didn't. I was just talking. But the few girls insisted he was being a bad boy. He said he'll marry us in the future. The girls stood aside, looking wronged. I felt I should say something to show that I'm not an irresponsible brother. Chen Hao, how could you do that? You're a student now. Your main task is to study, not to focus on things like love and romance. Zhang Zhu, standing behind me, let out a light laugh. I suddenly became sober, recalling someone had said that to me before. Chen Zi, you're a student. Focus on your studies. Don't always think about dating. But this is college. It'd be such a pity not to date. Zhang Zhu had repeated the same words she used to lecture me. You two really are brothers. Zhang Zhu commented. She comforted the little girls and sent them away. My brother and I stood aside, looking equally sheepish. Zhang Zhu walked back into the office, handed me the water bottle, then picked up her bag. Let's go. I'll treat you to a meal. Whenever we heard the words dinner time in the past, my brother and I could jump 3 feet high with excitement. But when faced with Jiang Zhu, my brother and I became quiet and docile. Especially my brother. He only dared to pick the food right in front of him with his chopsticks. Perhaps because I was the one who suggested the breakup. And rumor had it that someone had seen Jiang Zhu enter a jewelry store, buying a ring, intending to propose to me. But I dumped her. Now, whenever I looked at Jiang Zhu, my heart was filled with guilt. Hey you, how's life abroad? Not bad. Busy studying every day. At least no one's clinging to me for a relationship anymore. I buried my head in my bowl, not daring to speak. Thankfully, Jiang Zhu didn't mention her own affairs again, but instead talked about my brother Chen Hao's studies. My brother looked at me with a tear-stained, pitiful face. Sorry, little brother. To save me from embarrassment, I can only trouble you. After the meal, I declined Jiang Zhu's offer to drive us home, resolutely taking the subway instead. My brother pulled me along, running faster than a rabbit. After boarding the subway, we brothers gasped for air, clinging to the handrail. So Teacher Ki Zhang is your ex-girlfriend? I nodded. Then Teacher Zhang must have really liked you. Did she used to listen to everything you said? I pondered carefully. I suppose she did like me back then. As for listening to everything I said, it does seem that way. Seeing me nod, my brother became even more excited. That's great. Why don't you get back together with Teacher Zhang? I stared wide-eyed at my brother, unable to imagine how a 7-year-old child could utter such words. People around us cast strange glances our way. I instantly felt we had boarded the wrong subway today. If Teacher Zhang treats me badly in the future, I can just tell you to complain. How has she treated you badly? She always calls on me to answer questions. She checks my homework very carefully. I remained silent for a long time, then spent the rest of the journey explaining to him that this was just a teacher showing concern for his performance, not anything else. So are you going to help me or not? Aren't I your little brother? No. You're the bane of my existence. After much contemplation, I simply recounted to him the story of my relationship with Jiang Zhu. Afterwards, Chen Hao fell silent until we got off the subway. Then he suddenly shouted, "So it's because you dumped Teacher Zhang. That's why Teacher Zhang doesn't like me." Explaining it to this kid was pointless. His brain had issues. When we got home, my eyes were red. I tossed my bag aside and rushed into my room, bursting into tears. What's wrong? Aren't you usually happy when your brother picks you up? My mother walked into the room, puzzled. In no time, I heard the sound of wailing from inside. Only now did my mother realize the true meaning of a complete and perfect tragedy. Fortunately, his sorrowful mood lasted only 3 days. 3 days later, he came home with a homework book, on which a big thumbs up was drawn, proudly showing off today's reward. Teacher Zhang said I've been doing well with my homework lately. She drew this specially for me. My brother took it and boasted. But I stared at the big thumbs up, lost in thought. It was a simple doodle that I had taught Jiang Zhu how to draw. Back then, we studied together in the library, but I couldn't keep up with the brilliant student's pace. After reading for a while, I'd start to avoid drooling on the books. I had to divert my attention, so on his draft paper, I drew a simple thumbs-up doodle. Don't scribble on my homework book. He warned me. I glared at him, displeased. I was calling you. You can use this to reward kids when you become a teacher. Jiang Zhu chuckled without a word, letting me doodle thumbs-ups all over his book. So he's learned it, huh? I returned the book to my brother. He eyed me curiously. Maybe you should just be with Teacher Zhang. You don't have a girlfriend anyway. How do you know? Everyone knows. The math teacher blushes whenever he mentions Teacher Zhang. I grinned smugly. But I still hope Teacher Zhang can be with you. When people ask, Teacher Zhang will be my future sister-in-law. How impressive would that be for me? But this was my vanity talking. I covered his mouth, urging him to go do his homework. After that, Dad didn't bring it up again. I thought he had forgotten about it. But a week later, I suddenly received a message from Jiang Zhu. Chen Hao said you haven't been in a relationship because you've been waiting for me all these years. A gentleman spreads rumors with just his mouth rumors open. Makes one's legs after getting home. I immediately gave my brother a beating. He covered the back of his head and shouted, "That's just how it is. You haven't been in a relationship. Weren't you just waiting for Teacher Zhang?" I was suddenly stunned. If I denied it, wouldn't that expose my pathetic years of not being in a relationship? Bro, just go for Teacher Zhang. Teacher Zhang knows you haven't dated. She's really happy about it. How do you know she's really happy? Are you the worm in her stomach? He snorted coldly, turning his head to the side. I just know. This afternoon she showed us a movie, which she normally doesn't do. Was it about protecting teeth? How did you know? I was so angry I had to take several deep breaths to barely maintain my composure. Because today is World Oral Health Day. I'm done with this brain. Yet my brother stubbornly stuck to his view, keep harping on. That night, as I lay in bed, my phone screen still showed Jiang Zhu's message tone. After pondering, I replied, "Not really." though a few people are pursuing me. I haven't found a suitable one yet. After sending successfully, I tossed my phone aside. 3 seconds later I received a message. Is it because you haven't met anyone more suitable than me? Damn, the foreign environment really changed her. The former belle of the school, now she's even throwing shots. I thought you were waiting for me. After all, you said you'd love me for life back then. Looking at Jongzu's message, my heart was filled with mixed feelings. It was years ago. Just consider it me talking big. But you took it seriously. Those four simple words very well made me lose sleep that night. The next day, I went straight to work with dark circles under my eyes. My co-workers who passed by my desk were startled. There's no project recently. How did you end up staying up so late? Don't tell me it's because of a woman. I forced out a smile. My co-worker patted my shoulder with a knowing look. Relationships need to be chosen carefully. Listen to music and all that. It's better to choose someone who loves you more than you love them. Like that sweet little thing from the customer service department who's been chasing after you lately. I suspected my co-worker might have been bribed. So much he was desperately trying to set me up with a colleague from the customer service department. I had just politely declined when that same colleague from customer service came over and said, "Busy today? Want to grab dinner after work?" Apparently, this colleague was a returnee from abroad. Despite being in customer service, she didn't have a hint of that customer service demeanor. She always carried designer handbags, and her outfits were all luxury brands. Her whole being exuded the aura of a spoiled little princess. I saw on your social media that you wanted to try Korean barbecue. There's a new place that just opened nearby. I was about to refuse, but the moment she mentioned Korean barbecue, I hesitated. It's just a meal. I did want to check it out too. Let's just go as friends then. Well, she's insisted this much already. It doesn't seem like I can refuse. So after work, I went to the restaurant with him. The smoke-filled barbecue place. I was eating with gusto, without any decorum. He said, "I've always wanted to ask what kind of person you like." Jongzu's face appeared in my mind, like the moonlight at the edge of the sky, unreachably high. A gentle yet aloof person, the kind that would make your heart flutter at first sight. Actually, there is someone I like, though I don't want to admit it. But Jongzu really is the moon in my heart. My colleague fell silent for a long time, then gave a bitter smile. "Come, let's eat meat." After the meal, night had almost fallen. My colleague offered to drive me home. Just as we were leaving, someone called my name from behind. I turned around to see my brother holding Jongzu's hand, both wearing gloomy expressions. "Didn't you say you'd come pick me up today?" I forgot. When we got home, my brother threw his bag and went to his room. He seemed upset. "Why have you two been fighting so much lately?" I scratched my head awkwardly. "It's my fault, really. I said I'd pick him up from school today, but got busy and forgot." He waited with Jongzu. My brother and Jongzu had waited bitterly at the school for 2 hours. Eventually, she decided to take him home. Just past one street corner, they saw me coming out of the barbecue place. After finally pacifying my brother, I remembered to send Jongzu a message. "Thanks for today. I got caught up and forgot. Busy eating with another woman." Jongzu's reply made me think of the expression on her face earlier. Gloomy. Her gaze as if she wanted to burn a hole through my colleague. Until my dad yelled that she was squeezing his hand too hard. She suddenly realized it was just a colleague. I had some work matter and sought his help. I don't know why, I felt the need to explain myself so thoroughly to Jongzu. It felt like I was being overly defensive. After washing up and lying in bed, I finally received Jongzu's message. "It's none of my business who you eat with. We've broken up anyway. I wouldn't care if you ate with someone else." But that line successfully kept me up all night. Afterwards, Jongzu never contacted me again. In the days that followed, my colleague moved on to pursue other guys. My life returned to its peaceful state. Until a month later, when I brought home my latest exam scores, making my mom beam with delight. She rewarded me with 2 big chicken drumsticks that night, but there wasn't a hint of a smile on her face. After a sigh, she put the drumsticks in my bowl. Bed, my brother quietly pushed open my door. "Could you date Miss Jong? I really can't take it anymore." My brother lay on my bed, almost in tears. "Miss Jong checks my homework every day. I get called on to answer questions every class. I'm so exhausted. She's always focusing on me. It's too much. I'm so tired." Just as I was about to counsel my brother, I realized he had fallen asleep from exhaustion. Is it really that tiring? Over the next 2 weeks, I noticed my brother looking more drained by the day. He was even dozing off while eating. That's when I finally grasped the severity of the situation. I decided to message Jongzu. "Teacher Jong, Chen Hao's scores have improved, but he's been complaining about being too tired. Could you please let him take it a bit easier?" Formal and polite, not a single I inwardly congratulated myself. In the afternoon, I received Jongzu's reply. He has great potential. He should focus on his studies. Seeing the message, I grew annoyed. Chen Hao doesn't even watch TV anymore. As soon as he gets home, he buries himself in homework. Then I recalled, could this be because of that time when she saw me eating with my colleague? Do you pay such close attention to your other students? Are you still upset about what happened before? Are you questioning my professionalism? He saw me eating with my colleague. Do you pay such close attention to your other students too? Or are you still upset about what happened before? Are you questioning my professionalism as a teacher? No, I'm just being objective. I silently thought to myself, Jiangzu is getting pettier these days. Afterwards, Jiangzu didn't reply. Only when she was leaving school that evening, my brother came home with a long face. Teacher Zhang criticized me today. Why wouldn't Jiangzu go easy on my brother? Didn't she learn about teaching ethics back in school? Did she just throw all that out when she went abroad? I took out my phone, about to confront her, when I saw a new message pop up. It read, "He has been studying harder than before lately, but only during class time. At other times he's just playing card games." I've asked around. He's been sneaking around playing at night too, to the point of neglecting food and sleep. I rushed into my brother's room in my mind. And sure enough, under his mattress was an entire set of Ultraman trading cards. He must have spent all his allowance on buying those cards. My brother hid in the corner, playing dumb. Then Jiangzu sent another message. I've already talked to him about it. His card games are affecting his rest now. You should step in at home. And I call on students randomly in class. There's no favoring certain students. Reading the messages, I was ashamed beyond words. I can't believe this is how you see me now. I'm really in trouble. Fuming inside, I called my brother over and gave him a beating, then confiscated all his Ultraman cards. Only afterwards did I realize Jiangzu might be angry, because I apologized and she didn't reply. In the past when she was mad, she'd ignore messages too. Perhaps it's because Jiangzu is so ethical. She felt hurt being accused of misconduct. Seeing my messages go unanswered, I decided to apologize in person. On my way to pick up my brother, I went to the office. Jiangzu was still in her simple white shirt. Yet her presence outshone everyone. On my way to school, I overheard some young boys discussing how attractive Miss Zhang from class 2-3 was. It seems aesthetics are cultivated from a young age. This feeling took me back to when university. I joined a club and happened to hear about an incredibly beautiful senior. After catching a glimpse of her by chance, I was instantly smitten. Did you need something? She caught me staring. Not flustered at all, I said. Sorry about that. I got carried away earlier. I came to apologize. Very well. Apology accepted. Just like that? After all that rehearsing, she puts an end to it so quickly. Let me make it up to you over dinner. I have something else to attend to later. After such a long preamble, she's ending it just like that. Let me take you out for a meal. To make it up to you and apologize properly. That won't be necessary. I have something else shortly. Just as I was about to speak, a knock came from behind me.